Hi, welcome to Brain Awareness Week. Thanks so much for calling in and participating. This is Cathy Off with the University of Montana.
And then what?
And she's here to share all sorts of awesome things with you today.
I am. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about a little bit about language and about the brain, and hopefully we'll have some time to do some fun stuff with you as well.
Thank you.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Thanks. Do you want to come in?
I'm gonna come in. Yeah. I'm just gonna come in and sit here. I'm running tech. I'm running backup. All right.
All right. Hi, you guys. I am Cathy Off. I'm from the University of Montana. I'm a speech-language pathologist and an instructor at the university. I train students to become speech-language pathologists and work with people who have had head injuries or strokes to regain their speech and language function. Okay.
Well, so first of all, I'm curious. You guys, do you know what a speech pathologist is or does?
No. Okay, good. A speech pathologist or a speech therapist, you might have heard them be called sometimes.
Conference recording has started.
Thank you. Are people who help people for their whole life. So from the time they're born all the way through their adulthood to either work on their speech, how their sounds are produced, or to help them regain language. So maybe they have had, so for me in particular, if they've had a stroke or a brain injury, they may not be able to say words, they may not be able to say sentences, and we help them work on that spoken language. We also help with reading and listening to language and speech and writing. Does that help you understand a little bit what we do? Yeah, so almost every school has their own speech therapist or a speech therapist who comes to the school part-time to help out when kids are having trouble. And then all hospitals will have a speech therapist, and lots of other healthcare settings will have speech therapists as well. Does that help a little bit? Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me tell you a little bit about myself, but before I do that, I'm hoping that you will participate in an activity with me. Do you folks have any Play-Doh or some paper and pencil with you?
We got Play-Doh.
Woo! All right. Can you give everybody a small little ball of Play-Doh?
Sure. Don't get this on the floor because there's carpet, so I want you guys to do it over the table, Kayla.
This feels like the dough you take.
All right, great. So, how many of you know what your brain looks like? All right. What I want you to do with this little ball of Play-Doh is to make a sculpture of what you think your brain looks like. And while you do that, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about how I got to where I am, and then I'll give you the chance to ask some questions, and we're going to do something else with your newly made brains, okay? All right, so I was born in a beach town called Camarillo, California, and when I was growing up, it was a agricultural town. We grew strawberries and lemons and limes and oranges, and rode horses around in these places. So that was kind of the background for me growing up. So even though you can think that I lived in California, I was not in a big city. I was growing up in a rural community, a lot like some of the areas here in Montana. This picture is me when I was probably 2 years old. collecting some shells. And then, so I grew up in this small town for a little while and then moved up to a city for the first time. So I moved to an area called Berkeley, which is right next to San Francisco. And I went to school there for college for 4 years. And it was while I was here at the University of California that I fell in love with studying the brain. You guys will love this because one of the very first times I got excited about studying the brain was with a professor who walked into the classroom, and he had a big giant bucket full of what I thought was water, and he put the big bucket next to the podium and then pulled out this big dripping ball and plopped it right on the desk in front of all of us, and there were probably 200 students. And this thing was all squishy, and it turned out that it was a brain. And he told us that this was what we were going to be studying for the whole semester. And his introduction to that awesome structure of the brain totally had me hooked for the rest of my life. Hopefully, when you guys are going through school, you'll find some amazing teachers that do that for you as well. So while I was in San Francisco area, I was learning things about how language works and how the brain is capable of producing language. And then I moved to the University of Wyoming for my graduate degree, where I learned to become a speech pathologist and worked for the very first time with people who have had head injuries and strokes. And then I went back after working for a while at a hospital in Philadelphia. I moved out to Seattle, where I was working more to learn yet more about the brain and language at the University of Washington. And it was just a few years ago, now 5 years ago, that I found my way here to Missoula, where I've had just the most amazing opportunity to teach and to get to work with patients. When I'm not working, I'm running with my dog and skiing. Which direction do I go? And hanging out with my 2 kids and my husband. So it's not all work all the time. Okay, so how are your brains doing?
Pretty good, I guess.
I need a knife.
Kind of small, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Show me with your hands how big you think your brain is. Oh, you guys are awesome. Do you know how much your brain weighs? 3 pounds. About 3 pounds. Yeah. Okay. So now that you have a sense of what your brain looks like with your clay model, so keep your model, okay, because we're going to do something with that in a minute. What you're going to want to do is make sure you know which is the front, the face end, and which is the back, okay? So make sure you know which is front and back, because we'll do something with that in a minute. How many of you know what your brain looks like? Can you describe what you think the brain looks like? Yep, in the front. Red sleeves. Yeah.
It's kind of like it's got like the stem, and then it's like a big front, and then like it's got a little more smaller end. Then there's like a whole bunch of weird wrinkles.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, those weird wrinkles are called gyri and sulci. So awesome. And the stem you were talking about is the brain stem. And the little part in the back that you were mentioning, the small part, is called the cerebellum. So awesome job. Great description. What color do you think the brain is? Turquoise shirt over on the side. Yep. Yeah.
Okay. It's like sort of reddish pink. Sort of.
All right.
And yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah. Do you have a Seahawks shirt on?
That's me.
Uh-huh.
Studied in 4th grade. It's gray with pink around the gyri, and it is mostly gray, and it's got this outer wall of fluid that protects it.
Awesome. You're absolutely right. So any parts that are going to be pink are the parts that have the arteries flowing over it, right? So you're going to see the blood coming from the heart. And the gray part is going to be the cell bodies of the neuron. And we can talk about that again in a minute. Great job. So I'm going to show you a picture right now of 3 different ways to look at the brain. Okay, so can you guys see that? There's 3 pictures, right? So if you look at the one, is there left, my left?
I would point to the center, and then you'll get to the one.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah.
So see this guy over here? This is a picture of a brain of somebody who has died, right? It's from an autopsy. And so this is not a living brain, but it's very close to what it looks like with a living brain. Okay, and then in the middle here, this guy is actually a living brain, and it's the skull has been taken off, and you're looking in the brain while somebody's having surgery. Okay, so you can see that the skull's been removed, but there's still a layer on top. That's one of the dura that's on top of the brain tissue protecting it. Okay, so that's the live brain. And then can anyone tell me what they think this last one is that I'm pointing to? Yeah, and gray shirt in the front. Yep.
It's X-ray.
Very close. Yeah, you're right. It's an image, and it's called a computed tomography scan or MRI scan. Okay, so 2 different kinds of scans. This one is an MRI. Okay, and so yep, it's just taking a picture of the structure of the brain. We're going to talk in a little while how there are images that you can take while the brain is doing a task, so you can see the activity of the brain while it's actually working. Okay, so these are 3 ways that we like to think about imagining the brain, right, and how it works. So keep those pictures in mind about what the brain looks like. Okay, so this question is a little harder probably because fewer of you will have touched a brain. How many have touched a brain? Anyone? Wow. Where did you touch a brain?
Did you go to UM?
Yeah.
Oh, these guys came to your place.
Oh, you guys are awesome. So do you know what kind of brain you touched?
I touched a goat brain.
A goat brain? Yeah. The black pants in the front?
Cow brain.
A cow brain, maybe? Sometimes a sheep brain, they're common too. Yeah, Seahawks jersey.
I touched a deer brain. I moved here, so I was getting a deer, and I just.
Oh, and so right, very live brain, almost, right? Yeah, and in the back. Yep.
I got to touch a fly brain, a beef brain, and a cow's brain and a sheep brain.
Very cool. So tell me, what did it feel like?
It felt like really squishy and wet.
Squishy and wet? Yeah, and you have a scarf on? Yep. Yeah.
Okay. It felt really rubbery and
Rubbery. Yeah. And then black sweatshirt.
That's you.
Yep.
I'm slimy.
Slimy. Very good. So some of you said kind of rubbery, right? Kind of and squishy. So what I want to do now is I'm going to show you a video of a brain that has just been taken out of somebody who died. Just that very moment. So it's still an almost living brain. Okay, so hang on and I'll show you so you can see a little bit more what the texture looks like. So there's not going to be any sound. I'm going to talk you through the video while you're watching it. So can you scroll forward through it?
Yeah, where would you like to start?
Keep going until we're past. There we
Great.
go.
Right about right there.
Yeah, that should be good. Okay, so this brain was just removed from a human after they had died. And so this neurosurgeon is holding it for you so you can see all of those little gyri in there, you can see that there's still a layer on top of the gyri, right? And you can see all the arteries that are in there. And what's going to be interesting is in just a minute, you're going to see the surgeon move the brain, and you can see kind of a little bit how it feels, right? See how jiggly it is? It's almost more like Jell-O than it is. Oops, that's okay. That's probably good. It's more like Jell-O than it is like clay. And if you were to take that layer off that's there, all of it would ooze out like Jell-O. Okay, it wouldn't hold its shape. So once you take that layer off, it's called the dura. Once you take that off, it would just ooze, and it would like ooze onto the table, kind of like Jell-O before it gets real hard. That should be good.
Does anybody have any questions?
Do you guys have questions about how it feels? Yeah.
Thank you. Especially when people mention it outlet to you, but then I figured out that you answered it.
That's okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
we can go to the next.
Perfect.
Give us just a sec to get back to the slides.
Yep.
Okay, so now we've talked just a little bit about what it looks like and what it feels like. Now what I want to do is to teach you some different slices that scientists will use to examine the inside of the brain. So if you take your model, can you get your brain model back? Put it back into something that kind of looks like a brain. All right, and make sure you know kind of what you think the front is and what the back is of your brain. And if you were to cut it directly in half, like this, right? That would be called a sagittal slice, and that cuts the brain into right and left halves. Okay, we're going to do that in just a minute. Hang on, don't do it just yet. The second slice is called a coronal slice, and that cuts it from front to back, okay? And you can see here in this picture what it would look like on the inside. And the last slice is called a horizontal slice, so then you're looking at the brain kind of from top all the way down to the bottom, okay? And so you're looking at it like you're peering in on the top, okay? What I want you to do is to go back and make a cut that's the sagittal slice that cuts the brain into right and left, okay? So make your cut. I'm going to just get it kind of ready for a second. I think.
Don't push too hard, just do lots of back and forth. It actually cuts pretty good.
Okay. So the reason I wanted you to cut it into right and left halves is because I want to talk to you a little bit about how we make speech and language happen, and to teach you kind of where in the brain those areas reside. So do you have any idea what part of your brain is responsible for helping you talk and think in language? Okay. Oh, yeah, in the way back. Oh, yeah, Seahawks.
Conference recording has started.
Okay. It's the cerebrum that allows you to do all the five senses and to speak, but to move it takes the cerebrum.
Very good. Yep. And when we think about just talking and just language or listening to language, it's mostly our left hemisphere, the left side of our brain, that's processing that information. So, get hold of your left side of your model. And if I'm going to show you on my little friend Harry here.
Here he goes.
Okay, here's Harry. He's not Harry, which is why we call him Harry. All right. So this is Harry's left side here, okay? And so this is great. So if you look way down here, and you can see the same picture right on your screen of the two left sides of the brain that I have up there. This area in here is called Wernicke's area. And in this area of the brain, we are able to listen to other people talking, and this part of the brain will process that information and help you make sense of it. So it takes in all of the sounds that it's hearing in the environment and then tries to understand what that means. And so this little area here, Wernicke's area, listens to the speech that you hear from your friends talking or your teacher talking to you, and then you want to say something back, right? You want to answer a question that your teacher just asked you. The brain then sends that message of the information it just heard here and passes it way forward to this area, which is called Broca's area. And this area allows us to put our thoughts that are in our head and translate them into a message that then our muscles can produce for speech and language. So there's this little path that kind of goes forward here to help us produce language, to produce speech. And it's the same process if we want to write. It's the same process if you sign with language instead of speak. But everything comes in here that you're listening to, or you're, for sign language, it's going to be a little bit farther in the back. And then you move forward to produce the speech. Do you guys have questions about the area?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Like, what if you don't really understand people? Like, what part of the brain would that be?
That,
Oh,
yeah, it's okay.
We can go back to
So
Harry.
go back to Harry. That would be that first part that we talked about. So Wernicke's area in here. So if you're listening to somebody talk, but you're not understanding the words that they say, and it just kind of sounds like gibberish, it might be because this area of your brain is not working well. Sometimes it's just that we don't know the words and we have to work on our vocabulary. But sometimes it's because that part of the brain is not working and we have to retrain it how to process information. An example I like to think of is, what if you were in a different country and you were listening to a different language, right? So what does it sound like when you're listening to a different language?
Another language that's really interesting.
It sounds interesting, but you don't know the meaning, right? Yeah. So that's kind of this idea of, if Wernicke's area was not working and you were listening to English and you weren't understanding anything, it would kind of feel the same way. You would hear the sounds, but you wouldn't understand anything. Yeah, did you have a question in the back? Yep.
Another question. What part of your brain do you speak in?
Oh,
Can you try that?
Yeah, try that again. We kind of cut out.
What part of your brain do you speak a different language?
Oh, so all of our languages are going to be worked on in the same part of the brain. So you can speak 1 to 30 languages, and the same part of your brain is going to be responsible for all of those languages. Okay. All right. So let's move on a little bit. I wanted to talk to you guys just a bit about what I do, which is try to help change the brain, right? So that it works better. So one thing that's really interesting to think about is how much the brain changes over your lifetime. So from the time that you were a baby in the womb all the way through adulthood, your brain is constantly changing. So, and this change is called brain plasticity, or probably you guys already know this, is called neuroplasticity, right? So that's the ability for the brain to keep changing. It's plastic, right? It's able to be stretched around and moved, right? And this brain plasticity allows us to develop, so as we grow up, right, all the way from the time that we're toddlers and babies through adulthood. And in fact, our brain doesn't really finish developing until we're about 28 to 30 years old. And so you guys still have a long ways to go for your brains to continue to grow up and to develop. The other reason that it's so important that our brain can change is that we want to be able to learn and maintain new skills. So what kinds of either sports or games or instruments do you guys play? Go ahead. You guys can each take a turn and tell me what you're learning.
Well, first, I play piano and violin.
Awesome. Anyone else?
I play the saxophone and I do taekwondo.
Excellent.
I do the snare drum.
Awesome. Yep. You guys can keep going around the room.
Piano.
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 I play the flute and I do choir and I also do like MMA, wrestling.
Wow, that's a very unique skill. So we'll talk about that. Yep. Go ahead.
Me?
Yep.
Okay. I do wrestling and MMA.
Okay. Cool. Yep.
I play saxophone, piano, and I play football.
Excellent. Who else? Any others? Yep. Seahawks jersey.
I am an extreme gamer.
So lots of video games?
And I'm gonna do football.
Okay. Yeah, and in the back?
The mandolin and boxing.
Very cool. How about the other side of the room? What do you guys do? Yeah.
I do choir, piano, and tennis.
Wow. Yep. Right behind her. Yep.
I also do choir, piano, and tennis.
Great. Yep. Over. Yep. Can you say that one more time?
Louder, say it louder.
I do choir and song.
Yeah.
Great. Yep. And then in the front, you boys at the front table here. Yep.
I play soccer.
Soccer
Baseball.
and baseball. So I think we've got almost all the sports and games covered with you guys. You have some awesome activities. So it's really important, right, that as you're learning these new tasks, that your brain can change, right, so that it can learn these new skills. Amazingly enough, the brain can also change if the body gets hurt. So the brain is going to change if your arm gets hurt and you're trying to go back to physical therapy, right, and relearn how to use your arm. It's also going to change if you injure the brain itself. So if you hit your head, or if you have a disease or a stroke that causes the brain to get injured, it will respond to that injury and then change. So it's really important, right, that we know how to see if the brain is changing. And there's a lot of different ways that we can do this. And there are so many different people, so many different scientists that study the brain in different ways to figure out how it's changing. Some scientists look at the brain cells, and they might do this by studying mice, okay? Some scientists are interested in looking at how the brain is working while it's alive, right? So taking images like we talked about before of the brain while the brain's doing something like reading or writing or telling jokes or doing jumping jacks, right? So there are ways to image the brain while you are doing activities, and that will show what areas of the brain are being active during those times. And then there are a lot of scientists who are, including myself, who study human behaviors to try to understand how the brain is working. So I am not opening the skull and looking inside at the brain on a daily basis with my patients. Instead, I'm looking at their behavior, right, and seeing what they're able to do. How are they able to talk? How are they able to write? And trying to make observations of those behaviors and to help them improve their speech and language. So the picture on the bottom here, down here, is one of my patients. He's in the middle. And on the side, one of my students is trying to help him work on saying single words. So he had a really massive stroke. His brain was really damaged, and he's working on just being able to say short phrases or single words. And the lady here, as well as his wife, who's helping us out. Okay? So there's a name for this disorder when you have injured your brain and you can't have trouble speaking, understanding, reading, and writing, and it's called aphasia. And so that's my job, is to help these folks with aphasia to get better. And there are a few things that we can do to help this. There are scientists have been studying all sorts of different animal brains and all sorts of human brains over the last 50 years to understand how we can help change the brain in a positive way. So we call these principles of neuroplasticity, and there's 10 of them, but I'm only going to tell you about 4 really important ones and how they can help you when you're learning a new skill as well. So the first one is called use it or lose it, right? So you all have some fantastic activities that you're working on: piano, choir, baseball, soccer, some really awesome martial arts sorts of things that I've never done. What happens when you don't practice for a while?
You get rusty at it.
Get rusty at it, you forget. And yeah,
Practice.
you got to practice, right? So, for instance, when I was in college, and from the time I was about 10 till the time I was through college, so till I was like 23, I played field hockey. And I played probably almost every day for most of those years. And every day I would get better and better and better, right? Now it's been almost 20 years since I played field hockey. Do you think I'm still good at field hockey?
No.
No, probably not. I probably still know what to do with the stick and the ball and how to move it around a little bit, right? And I know the rules of the game, but my skills are going to be horrible. I am not going to be as fast as I used to be with the kind of eye-hand coordination. I'm not going to be as good at shooting on the goal. It's a lot like soccer, the same type of field. I'm probably not going to be as good at and accurate at hitting the ball into the goal anymore because it's been a really long time since I've used it. So this principle, this idea, use it or lose it, is really important for new skills and for keeping your skills up. So when we think about trying to help somebody recover their language, we have to encourage them every day that no matter how frustrating it is, no matter how maybe they feel embarrassed because it doesn't sound right, that they have to keep trying to do this. Otherwise, the brain thinks that it's not important anymore. So that's the first one, is use it or lose it. The second one is use it and improve it. So how many of you have coaches? Do you have coaches and you go to practice, or you have a piano teacher or a music teacher? Right. So when you have practice or you have a lesson with your vocal coach or your piano teacher, what do they make you do? Yeah, in the back. Yep.
Practice as hard as you can and try to do it the best you can.
Right. So keep practicing, right? And you probably have some drills that you have to do, right? Some things that are, yep, again in the back. That's okay. That's okay. So I think about when I was practicing field hockey all the time, there were a lot of drills, right? You had to do some things with the ball through some cones, and you did this over and over again during practice, right? And sometimes it gets kind of boring, and we get tired of doing the drills, but there's a reason for doing them, right? It tells the brain, this is important. You need to get better at this. You need to keep trying, otherwise the brain's going to say, it's not that important. I don't need to learn it. So using it and proving it is really important. You have to keep practicing and keep trying, even if you're getting frustrated. The brain will adapt eventually. It just has to have a lot of practice. Same idea with repetition. So you don't just do your drills once, right? You do them a lot of times. So if you're practicing piano, do you practice your piece one time? Or do you try to do it multiple times? Right? Lots of times, right? If I'm learning, so a couple of you are learning to play tennis. You don't just go out and hit one forehand and one backhand and say, that's it, my day of practice is over, right? You have to go and hit hundreds and hundreds of forehands. There was a famous tennis player when I was growing up whose father made him hit 1,000 tennis balls every single day. I don't know. Do you guys know who Andre Agassi is? I think he's too old now for you guys to know. But when I was growing up, he was a famous tennis player. And his dad made him hit 1,000 tennis balls every day. And that's how he became the master tennis player that he was. And so it's not just once. It's doing the same thing over and over again. You guys probably do this in school sometimes, right? Where you do the same task over and over again in school. There's a reason for that. Your brain responds to that. And then very lastly is what's called intensity matters. And the idea here is that you can't just do it one day in the week for the brain to think that it's important. You have to keep doing it, maybe not every day, but every other day or 3 or 4 times a week. And then your brain understands that this really is an important new task and it has to learn. So how many times, for those of you playing sports or doing awesome martial arts things that I don't know anything about, how many times do you do that every week?
Show on your fingers.
Yeah, should be with it. 5, 6, 7. Whew. So you are learning the skill really well, right? By being able to go that many times to practice. So fantastic. So keep that in mind. When I'm working with people trying to help their brain recover from an injury, I can't just have them show up once a week. If I do that, they're not going to get better very quickly. It's going to take them a long time to improve. So it's better to see them more frequently and to practice with them more often. And that's part of what my research is doing, is looking at just how much they need to come in and how much they have to practice with me to be able to show improvements. Do you guys have questions about other ways that the brain learns or changes over time? Okay. All right, so let's think back just a little bit. What did you learn about how the brain looks, what it looks like and feels like? Did you learn something new today? Yeah, in the black shirt at the back? Yep.
I learned that the brain has like red and there's special like nerves and stuff with it. So I just always thought those are really cool.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and in the front in a turquoise shirt?
I learned that the brain is gray. I always thought it was like a pinkish color, but it's just like the outside layer on the.
Yeah, so it's interesting because the cells can be either gray or white depending on the part of the brain that you're looking at. So all the, if you think about the cells in the brain, the neurons, they have a cell body, and the cell body is the gray part, and then the long axon, which sends the signals out, is white. And then the little dendrites that receive information are kind of grayish white. So you end up getting these different colors throughout the brain. And then the pink is just the blood being sent to help feed the brain. Yeah. Seahawks, what's your name?
My name's Gabe.
Hi, Gabe. Okay. What did you learn?
I learned that what our unique bond is speech.
Yeah.
Talk.
Great. So what side of your brain helps you talk and listen to speech and language? The left. Yep. Awesome. Good job. Anyone else have something that they felt like they learned about what the brain looks like or felt like today that was different than what they had in their mind? Yeah.
Did you say that your brain keeps developing until you're 30? What did you say about being 25 or 30?
Yeah. So your brain continues its normal development all the way through 25 to 30 years old. So
you can still learn things after you're 30, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So, yep. So your brain is just still on its path to adulthood until it's about 30. And then at 30, it still is fully capable of changing all the way till the end of life. So learning new skills your whole life is really important for brain health. So you want to be learning new things over the course of your life so that your brain stays active and thinks that it's still important. Yeah. Some other questions?
Gabe's got a question.
Oh, Gabe. Oh, Gabe's friend has a question.
Riley, you already answered it for me.
Oh, okay, good.
Oh.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If part of the brain's been damaged through speech, does it recover, or does another part of our brain kind of take over? How does that work?
That's a great question, and the good answer is we don't know yet fully, and somewhat it depends. So if the area that's damaged is really large, then the brain will try to find another location that's better suited because there's been so much death of cells, right, in one area. And an interesting thing is that if a huge part of the left hemisphere is damaged, the exact same place on the right hemisphere will be the place that tries to take over for that language function. So it's called the homologous area, the area that's exactly opposite to it. But if it's a smaller area, usually the cells right around the dead cells where the injury was will try to take over that function.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Mm-hmm.
So if I've heard in the past, if someone was like blind, that the area that deals with auditory responses is larger or more developed. Is that true, or?
Essentially, it might not be larger in size, but the cells may be more responsive. So they are going to be kind of more accurate at hearing the information because the other sense organs aren't providing information. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. In the black sweatshirt.
My brain do anything?
Can you repeat
Yes,
that?
that's the right brain. Must know what the right brain does.
Oh gosh, well, you know, that's a whole nother lecture. But the right side of our brain is a little bit more involved in creativity and music and abstract thought. So when you guys are thinking of vocabulary words, that's going to happen mostly on the left side of your brain. But when you're thinking about how you feel or what something looks like, you might be starting to kind of activate that right hemisphere. But one thing to keep in mind is always to remember that the brain is working all the time as a whole. It just, some of these areas do focus on certain functions more than others. But your brain is always in use, the whole thing. Yeah. Was there a question? Yeah. Gabe.
Grade, I heard that your brainstem carries out. First of all, it carries out the messages through the neurons into the spine. But I heard it also controls the face.
So you're asking really great questions, and they're somewhat complicated, but we have an area in our cortex, in the cerebrum, that has representation of our whole body. So when you have a thought that you want to move a part of your body, that comes from the cerebrum, and then down through the brainstem and the spinal cord is what helps make the movements actually happen, right? So everything is controlled up here, but then the messages are sent downstream. Yeah, in the turquoise shirt.
So can a part of your brain be stronger than all the others?
Not so much stronger like muscle strength, but some folks are better at certain things than others, for sure. So I tend to be really good at speech and language and always have loved learning new languages, and I've been good at that. I am not very good at mechanical sorts of things, so building, constructing things, that's not my strength. So sure, everybody has different strengths, but it doesn't mean that they can't be changed. So if you practice and you learn a new skill, you can change that ability to be better, stronger at a skill. It just takes practice. Yeah.
Can like a part of the brain be like full of imagination, like you have a strong point with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I have a really strong point with that.
I have a daughter with a really great imagination too. Yeah. With this scarf on. Yep.
So I've always heard that like one side of your brain is more dominant than the other. Is that true?
In most people, that is true. There is a hemisphere dominance in most people, but not everybody. And not everybody is left hemisphere dominant. So for some people, this is really interesting, language actually ends up being housed or taken care of by the right hemisphere. So there's a lot of diversity across the whole world of how our different brains work. Yeah, in the back.
Would it take more parts for like when you're a little kid? Would it take more parts of your brain to learn how to walk and move and everything?
So the parts of the brain aren't going to change as you grow up, but what happens is when you're really little, your body's not ready yet. So the body, the structure is kind of immature and has to learn along with the brain development as well. So it's two things going on while you're growing up. Part of it's that your body's just not ready to do it, and the other part is that your brain has to develop those skills to do it. Yeah, Gabe. Are we almost out of?
Yeah, we're getting really close.
Yeah.
You know that brain is crosswired. The left side of your body controls the right side of your body.
You are correct. Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, so if I raise my right arm, the left side of my brain made that happen. You got it. Yep. It's a very crazy arrangement, isn't it? Yeah. Hang on. First with the black sweatshirt, and then with the scarf.
Yep, and then I think we're
out of time.
Yeah.
Which side does creativity, and is it true that when you're left-handed and you write with your right hand, would that mean you're technically left-handed for your right hand?
If you are can you try that again? So if you're left-handed, are you writing with?
You're
ambidextrous.
Oh, yeah.
Would you be writing with your left side of your brain? Like, would you count as being left-handed or right-handed?
Yeah.
You're writing with the left side of your brain because you're doing your right side of the brain.
Yeah, you're asking a really cool question because there are people who are left-handed and then they are right brain dominant, which means that maybe some of their language is in their right hemisphere. And then there are people who are left-handed that have all their language centers in their left hemisphere, just like right-handers do. So we don't know that without doing a whole bunch of very crafty tests, but it's different across people. Yeah.
All right, and then my question was a little bit like hers. I was going to wonder, like, if you're right-handed, does that mean you're more left-brained? And if you're left-handed, does that mean you're more right-brained?
No, there's the majority of people end up being right-handed, but that doesn't necessarily relate to whether you're more dominant in your left or right hemisphere.
Good questions,
Yeah,
you
great.
guys.
Yeah, great. You guys have the best questions. Thanks so much for being there today. I appreciate it.
Can you all take a minute and help me thank Dr. Off for presenting with us today? Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. If you ever want to come visit, please do. I'm always on campus.
Thank you.
Encore.
And also, this is DiBiasio. We're going to be doing this again next week in the afternoon. If you have a class, we do have an opening. If you have a class in the afternoon that would like to participate as well, so just send me an email.
Okay.
It'll be same topic.
Or any of the colleagues.
Yeah, absolutely, or any other colleagues. So thank you guys so much
Thank
for
you.
participating.